Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to Japan by River Cruise with your hosts, Ollie and Bobby. I'm Bobby. I'm calling in from Kyushu in Japan.
And I'm the cheeky boy next door, Ollie Horn, calling in from the Cotswolds in the United Kingdom.
I didn't know we could give ourselves like adjectives. I have to think of what kind of an individual I am.
You could maybe you're the opposite of a cheeky boy next door. You're the
What's that?
I don't know what is the opposite of cheeky.
I'm the respectful old woman
Who doesn't live anywhere near me.
Yeah, well, at least we got one of those right. So today we'll be discussing all kinds of Japan Tokyo 2020 Olympic news. And as always, we're going to take an in-depth look at the world of Japanese river cruises, including this week's river cruise recommendation. Ollie?
Yes, this week I'll be looking at an energy-saving river cruise that runs directly through Kyoto's red light district. Locals are in arms. Where will the energy saved actually go?
I cannot wait to find out about that. And the Japanese have long known that a river cruise can be a perfect destination for a marriage proposal, but we'll take a look at why recently they've become an unlikely locale for serving subpoenas. But first, soap talk.
Talk. Bobby, why do we call it soap talk?
Ollie, say soap talk in Japanese.
Oh yeah, sekken banashi.
You nailed it. But nobody says soap talk. They say small talk, which is sekken banashi.
Yes, sekken banashi.
Okay, so let's discard that. And how was your week?
My week was good until yesterday, where I found out that a gig which I was supposed to be doing this weekend got pulled. But then on a Facebook comedy forum, there was a post from a promoter saying, "Hey, there's been a dropout. Would anyone like to do the opening spot for this gig in Bristol?" And I thought, fantastic, great. I'm going to Bristol for a gig anyway. I can double. Applied for this spot. Sent a clip, and then an hour later he responds saying, "Yep, seen your clip. Great, you're in." And then I take a celebratory nap, and then wake
As
up.
One does. As one does.
Well, you know, it's gonna be
Most
a good
people
weekend.
celebrate things with a nap.
Yeah, and then I woke up from the nap to find an absolute barrage of hate on my Facebook. Basically, what happened was this forum where he posted had a thread underneath, which wasn't there when I applied for the gig, basically saying this guy was an absolute shyster, a scam artist who owed a load of comedians loads of money, and everyone was really
Oh,
cross.
no.
And the main thing was people were saying, whatever idiot applies for this gig after knowing all of this deserves to be publicly shamed, deserves to be ostracized from the comedy community for spitting in the faces of all the comics that are owed hundreds of pounds by this man.
Why wouldn't they contact you and say, don't do it, and look out to try to protect you instead of blaming you for it?
Well, I suppose that's what they were doing, right? Because they didn't know that I'd like, at that point, the fact that I'd got the gig wasn't a matter of public record because he hadn't updated his website. And so this was obviously, people were sending this as a warning to tell people don't apply, but these warnings came too late. I'd already applied and already got the gig by the time people had started piling on this forum. Then when it was revealed that I was the act that had done it, people were then sending me like messages saying that I was an absolute scum and I was stealing from the mouths of comics that were owed money from him.
You were crossing the picket line and going to work for the enemy.
Well, exactly, and I had absolutely no idea. But the funniest thing was I then obviously messaged this promoter saying, "Hey man, just checking in about the gig on Saturday."
You don't happen to be an asshole, do you?
Yeah, a lot of people are calling you the C word. Just wanted to get your views on this. And he went, "Yeah, I guess this might come up. Don't worry about it. I'll pay you half the money in advance." As if he knows that, I'm about to pull out. And so I accept that. So at least I'm getting paid half. But everyone's telling me that I should have kept that half of the money and then just not turned up to the gig to cause him an inconvenience and ruin his gig. I think the easiest way that I can ruin his gig is by turning up and doing the gig to the best of my abilities.
And that's the end of that sentence. And that is the end of that sentence. I'm so glad you said that because I was sitting on it.
Not a great week, but I haven't done the gig yet. It might turn out to be brilliant, but yeah, a lot of people are really cross, telling me that I'm never going to work for some people again because I didn't heed their advice, despite the fact their advice came just moments too late. How was your week?
Well, he's a clever guy. I mean, he's getting you to do the gig. He's getting you to not pull out by paying you half in advance, and then he's getting a comedian at half price.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not going to see the other half.
Well, precisely, yeah. Well, I don't know, it's going to be a tough gig, I'm sure. It's one of these old junglers venues, which is a load of stag and hen do's. So.
Stag and hen do's. Stag and...
large groups of men and women who
Stinking.
see comedy as a arena for hostility.
Bachelor parties and bachelorette parties is what we call them
Yeah.
in the stag and hen do's.
Yeah.
I had a crazy day. I went to do a shoot for the travel segment I do for the local morning show. I was on roke, as they call it. You remember roke, Ollie?
I remember this word, Bobby. Yes,
Do you know what's it short for?
it's short for location.
Location. You're on location, right? So we went and did roke in Kitakyushu, and there's a mountain in Kitakyushu that's called Sarakura Yama, and the whole point of the corner is you're supposed to go. The segment, as it were, is you're supposed to go and find something that would inspire people to want to take a trip to this area, and so we do a lot of you go up a mountain and find some beautiful scenery. But this time it wasn't about the scenery; it was about this 72-year-old man who is. He's trying to climb this same mountain 10,000 times. He's trying to climb this same mountain 10,000 times, and he's almost at 7,000.
Where? Okay, there's a lot to unpack. Where did he? When did he start? When was his first climb?
He started at 52. I think he said he did it once when he was in elementary school, but then he turned 52 and he started climbing up for his health, and he saw this plaque at the top that said somebody had a record of climbing it 2,000 sometimes, and he was like, I could beat that. So he beat that years ago, and he's kept going. He climbs it every day, which is what they freaking told me. And so I climbed this mountain with him and then climbed back down. And as we got to the bottom, they were like, actually, he climbs it 2 times every day. I was like, what? I was like, no, he doesn't. I was like, no, this is the joke that you're using to close the segment. You're like, well, you want to go up again? And that's the punchline that they use to close the segments, right?
Yeah.
And so I totally played it like it was the punchline. And then they were all still standing there and they were like, it is not the punchline. We're going back up this mountain.
Goodness me.
The Onse-san, the sound guy, he crapped out halfway through going up the first time. And the director...
I mean, at least you haven't got heavy camera equipment to carry. At least it's just your ego that's on your back.
It weighs me down. It does weigh me down.
How? And so, presumably, this guy's fighting fit.
Oh yeah, no, he was fast. I mean, he was breathing hard, but he'd stop for 30 seconds and then he'd be fully recovered, which is the true test of fitness. Did you know that?
What's the true test of fitness?
Your recovery time, your heartbeat, and your breathing recovery time after a strenuous exercise. So this guy was killing it.
Right. I normally take about a month.
Yeah. He climbs it 2 times a day, and he generally, on weekdays, he gets up at 2:00 in the morning and climbs it from 3 to 5. It takes him an hour to go up and an hour to go down, and he can't see anything. And the whole time I was like, did you ever think about climbing other mountains? And he's like, nope, just this one. It's like, do you climb because you enjoy the exercise? Did you climb because you enjoy the scenery or the nature? And he's like, nope, I just do it to stay fit.
Oh my God. This is absurd. Does he listen to podcasts or anything? Maybe he should listen to the show on the way up.
Well, he listens to the radio on the way up.
But what's being broadcast at 2 a.m.?
The radio, there's always something on.
Yeah, I know, but come on.
Yeah. But no, he says everybody knows him because they're regular people in the neighborhood who climb this mountain, or there are people who come to climb it regularly, and everybody knows him because he's going up and down 2 times a day. And they're like, oh, you should come out with us to climb this other mountain. He's like, nah, I'm good. Or there's events where they walk 100 kilos in a day around a really scenic area, and they're like, you would kill it out there. And he's like, nah, I just want to climb this mountain.
So funny.
He's shooting for 10,000 times, and he said he's going to hit it in 3 or 4 years.
I love the fact he's indifferent about even his mountain. It's not like he thinks this mountain is special or has some special spiritual meaning. It's just, it's my little mountain. And then what do you think he'll do after 10,000 times?
He'll probably keep going. I mean, he wants that record, but once he hits it, he'll keep going. And it was brutal, man. I did not expect it to be such a hard climb. And then by the end of it, everybody had sweated through 2 entire outfits. We're covered in dirt. We all smell terrible. So we had to stop off at the dollar store and all buy a change of clothing and then take it to a local public bath and clean off and change before we came home.
Do you think it'll be a good story?
I think it's going to be. I mean, I definitely got to exercise my comedic chops. I
Did
had a
you film all
handful
that
of.
stuff, by the way?
Oh yeah, I
Like,
had a handful of pratfalls. I had a couple of real falls because like I was I was way too overtired and acting tired on the first way up, not knowing that we then had to go back down and then back up again.
did they really keep that from you just to get your actual on-air reaction?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, no, like they were like, we're going up again, and I was
Goodness
like,
me.
ha ha ha, nawake nai yang, and they're like, no, we're actually gonna go back up again. Brutal. But speaking of exercise, should we go ahead and get into the news? So, Tokyo 2020 Olympics are coming up. I don't know if you were aware of it. It's been
Yeah, I
a
think
big
this
thing
is
in the
actually old
Japanese
news,
news.
isn't it?
It's been on the news for like the last 30 years now, I think.
When was the last time Tokyo had the Olympics?
When was it? In the 40s? I think it was in the 40s.
No, it was after that because there's a stadium. Um, there's a stadium in Tokyo, isn't there? That if it were in the, I think it must have been after that.
It was
But
in the 60s. It was in
60s, yeah, that makes
1964.
sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They had one in 1940. They had one in 1964, and then one in Nagano after that. But then 2020 Summer Olympics. Yeah,
And
people do think it might be the last time.
it's I can't say I'm particularly excited by it. When the Olympics were in London in 2012, I actually spent that summer in Japan, and watched it from Japan, and then
Yeah,
flew back into Heathrow, and I think I caught one event. But I mean, I do think that Japan is going to have this big existential crisis after the Olympics is over because everything is framed through the lens of these goddamn Olympics, right? So
right.
anytime any company is looking to do anything, any internationalization, any policy justification, any fuck up, any budgetary concerns, it's always like, well, we've got the Olympics to look forward to. This is necessary for the Olympics, or we're
It's
going to
going to
be
mobilize our economy. It's going to
exactly
give
right,
so
or
many
like
jobs. It's going to bring in
all
so much
these
tourism.
right, and like bus companies and travel companies and shops are looking to internationalize and localize their products in different languages. I do think the moment 2021 comes around, Japan's going to have to go, right, now what? Right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
What
yeah.
do we now? Maybe they have to start a war. So what's the what's the news?
So there's a handful of things. One ties into that idea of this might be the last Olympics, but before that, like a month and a half back, they opened up all the applications for tickets, and because there's so much demand, it's a lottery system. And just last week, they announced the results of the lottery, so people are finding out like what tickets they got, what tickets they didn't get, and there is so much demand for every event, for the opening ceremony, for all of the events that nobody cares about. And now they've announced the results, and I'm like totally lost. I'm totally left out of the conversation. I was in Tokyo doing some self promotion, going around trying to book jobs and things, and I was a complete pariah because everybody wanted to talk about like what. Yeah.
I was in Tokyo doing self promotion. That just seems like a perennial tweet.
How do you translate egyo?
Bobby is doing self promotion.
Self promote. It means sales. It's you pound the pavement. You go. You meet producers. You meet
Yeah.
television production companies. But yeah, it's
All
self
right.
promotion. It's. I mean, Jiko PR.
Yeah.
The
I mean, yeah. I
Japanese
mean,
it's Jiko PR. Like you go out and you try to sell yourself. Literally
what's this
translates
podcast
as
if it's
self
not?
PR.
What's this podcast if it's not self promotion? Maybe it's just a nice chat between friends.
I am not enjoying it that much. Um, I enjoy the parts where I talk about myself.
Okay. Well, why don't you continue to talk about the Olympics through the lens of Bobby Judo?
No, I do not care about the Olympics. And also like I'm in Fukuoka and to go to the Olympics in Tokyo, not only do you have to apply and then win a ticket and then pay exorbitant amounts for it, but then I would have to take off work, which means losing money because you're a freelancer, and then you'd have to pay to fly to Tokyo and then find a place to stay in Tokyo. So it's this whole like life uprooting thing. And the tickets are like in the thousands of dollars. So they could not understand like why I wouldn't be interested in doing that. They were like, you as somebody who's going to be a reporter on TV or this and that, like you have to be able to talk about it. And this was my manager in like a private conversation before we'd walked into an audition. And it was like, number one, like I thought this was like a private conversation. Like if they asked me this in an audition, of course I would have opinions about how great the Olympics are and how I'm looking
Yeah,
forward
right.
to what do they do in the summer? The summer luge? No. What are
To
the
the
summer
sports. Just say
basketball?
sports.
To the things with the balls.
Yeah.
All of the sports.
I'm looking forward to, how can you categorize the sports? I'm looking forward to people throwing things, putting things in things, or going fast.
Yes, all of that. Sometimes they might do it at the same time.
Yeah. And this lottery system, presumably, I mean, if there's one thing I know about the Japanese, it's they bloody love a lottery. There's a big phenomenon in New Year, isn't there? The fukubokuro, where you have these bags, these that are
Yeah. They
unopened.
they love to leave stuff to chance. I mean, I think this is kind of like a function of there's so much demand and only a handful of seats, but they do really like to take their chances and see what they get.
Because I suppose Japan is quite a safe and relatively predictable and stable country. Any opportunity to create some, some degree of I don't know, chance or luck. But anyway, so were people basically booking tickets for events which they didn't have any intention to go to, just because you can apply for as many lottery entries
Yeah,
as you want?
there's so many like cycling related events, and so the manager that I was talking to, she had like applied for some cycling stuff that she didn't even know what it was, but she'd gone through and she applied for the lottery for like 30 different events, and she was like, if by some chance I win all of them, like it will bankrupt me. Like,
This is like the opposite of of like the actual lottery, where if you win, you're prevented from being bankrupt for the rest of your life.
yeah,
This is
yeah,
if
yeah.
you.
I'm glad that I'm not in Tokyo for it. I think Tokyo is going to be a disaster, especially because, as you mentioned, a lot of people think that this might be the last chance to have the Summer Olympics in Japan because of the heat, because of global warming. There's already a lot of concern, like this year, that they're not going to be able to do events like marathons and things like that in the middle of the day, and the stuff that they're doing to to try to combat the heat is ridiculous. Um, they had a segment on Japanese TV the other day where all of the newscasters were trying on the suggested uh, umbrella hat. It's a I don't know if you've
Umbrella
ever
hat.
seen. Yeah.
You know that I did a segment on umbrella hat for KBC.
No,
Yeah, I have footage of me wearing the umbrella hat in my show. They got me to floss wearing it to show how much like maneuverability your body has. Have you not seen
does
this
it
clip?
actually stay on? Because so they
Yeah,
had one of the main guys for one of the bigger morning shows was trying it on and like shaking his head around. And the idea is that it's shade. I mean, it's not for rain; it's for shade. And so it's these like plastic umbrellas that are opaque so that they block out the sun. And hopefully, you wear it on your head around all day, and it keeps you cool. It gives you a little bit of shade. But he put it on his head, was shaking it around, and like everybody in the studio lost it. Like they could not stop laughing because of how ridiculous it is. It's
oh yeah,
ridiculous
they
in the
do look absolutely
way,
mad.
yeah, it looks ridiculous. And then the idea of like, it's too hot because of global warming. What are we going to do? Let's make plastic umbrellas for a million people. Like,
And this will solve it. This will solve
yeah.
it. Goodness me. Well, maybe they do just need to change the Olympic events, things that you can do in hot weather, right? So things like, maybe they give everyone a soft serve ice cream, and you need to eat it without it getting on your hands.
I think you take the gold for that, man.
Thank
Uh,
you.
No, I was looking forward to like some of the new events and things like that. Especially, they're doing a new like Japan specific. It's not a triathlon; they're doing a quadrathlon.
Okay.
You run a marathon and then you cycle and then you swim and then you work 40 hours of overtime.
all, 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 all of the events. Maybe it's that. Maybe you're like you're allowed to do the 100 meters. You're allowed to start whenever you want. It's the moment that your boss lets you leave the office.
You still run the hurdles, but instead of like a hurdle, it's just like the barricade at the train platform.
Yeah, right, exactly. Or like for
That was a suicide joke, by the way.
I got that. Or for maybe like for women's pole vaulting, they installed an actual glass ceiling they have to break through.
And then like nobody can do it because it's Japan. Like they tell them it's a glass ceiling and it's just like reinforced plexiglass.
And they make the women stand on the top of the glass, and all the men are looking up. Okay.
Super Japanese, yeah.
You're not going to be attending these events then.
No, and I'm really worried about like whether or not Tokyo is going to be able to handle it. And one of the big things that they're doing now is they're like all of the TV programs are taking a look at like all of the incoming tourists. Where are they going to stay? Where are they going to keep their bags? How's transportation going to work? And so like all the like peer-to-peer business model startups like Uber and Airbnb and stuff like that.
Yeah, all of which have been brutally outlawed.
Well, the thing is, in Japan, like they technically Airbnb, there's all these strict regulations around it, and they're absolutely just kind of like looking the other way and ignoring them until after the Olympics because they don't have a choice. They're not going to have anywhere for people to stay.
Yeah, well, what I heard is that the way in which this act, which essentially they claim it regulated Airbnb, but what it did is it more or less outlawed it for many parts of the country. Like local prefectures and specific local cities within prefectures can kind of opt out of certain bits. So, for example, they can waive certain registration or like formality requirements. And so I think what they're saying is they're going to be allowing it for. They're going to be allowing home sharing in specific circumstances for specific events. But of course, the whole point of, if you want to go to the expense of setting up an Airbnb in Japan, which I have done, I used to run two.
Yeah.
Like, you need quite a lot of capital, and it's just not worth it for like 2 weeks during an event. And so I can't. I genuinely can't see how it's going to work. Also, there are so many hotels being built at the moment, aren't there? Like when I was last in Tokyo a few months ago, literally every single street I visited had some like budget hotel chain erecting new hotel rooms, and they're all now basically going for cheaper than Airbnbs were. Your average price for an Airbnb room in Tokyo was between maybe 6,000 and 10,000 yen.
Right.
These hotels are now, their standard rate starts at like 7,000 yen.
Yeah, and Japan has really like it's doing that with a lot of things, like Uber as well. Have you ever taken an Uber in Japan?
Do you know what I have? When Uber did a trial, so Uber did a data science trial in partnership with Kyushu University.
Yeah.
And so this was basically, they wanted to just get data on how people were using the app. And so what they did was they made it free for up to, I think, 10 rides. And it just so happened they were only doing this launch for a week. This trial for a week, and I heard about it, and it was just at the moment where I was moving house, and so rather than paying for a moving company, I booked. I got
10 rides on an Uber and just kept loading it up with stuff and going back and forth.
I booked exactly the same Uber as well, and so not only did I completely like rip them off, I'm sure the driver got paid. Also, I'm sure it really fucked up their statistics. They were like, yeah, we got this really odd data from this particular part of Higashiku and Kyushu. But yes, but Uber is like, it's very expensive in Japan, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like twice what a taxi costs. And someone was telling me the other day that it's like they have brought it in this weird way and have marketed it as like a super upscale taxi service. It's like for celebrities and rich people.
Well, that is how it started. So if you look at the early pitch deck, the first pitch deck from Uber, when it was launched in San Francisco, it was exactly that. It was limousines on demand. They didn't really realize the potential of the ride sharing until later, after they copied Lyft, which was the rival there.
Yeah. Well, they are doing all this interesting stuff where like there are all kinds of businesses, restaurants, and shops where they're developing an app that will let them rent out space for tourists to leave their luggage. So you could find this app that will, you know about this?
Yeah. I think I actually reported on it on Love FM because they were doing a trial in Fukuoka as well. It's like 500 yen a day. But there were really big concerns about security because, if you're using a commercial luggage system, like a luggage storage, then they might find ways to like scan it or something. But
Yeah.
this is I think the one which we trialed was a squash court. A squash court in their reception. They had it like space for three or four different, and like they don't have the tools to check for bombs. But then again, who's really bringing bombs into Japan? Let's be honest.
I love that like all of your stories involve like a way that you got a free trial of something. Like you're like the old woman who clips coupons.
Yeah, I like
Gets
it,
all
really.
the free stuff in Japan. But no, it's a good point about like the security, because one of the news stories that I just pulled up earlier today was about to help beat the heat. They're considering, for the first time, I guess, allowing Olympic spectators to bring in their own drinks. And the reasons that they haven't done that in the past is security concerns. They're worried that somebody's going to bring
By
in.
security concerns, do you mean Coca-Cola sponsorship?
No, because they've locked it down pretty good. I think they mean more like somebody might bring in a cup of like acid or something that they could some liquid polymer that they might use as in an explosive or something like that.
Right.
And they take this super seriously in Japan. One of the things that people always comment, especially tourists who come over for big events and things like that, is that there's no public trash cans.
Yep.
And you know why there's no public trash cans, right?
Yeah.
Dozo.
Because there was domestic terrorism, right?
Yeah, the sarin gas
20 years ago.
attacks.
Yeah.
And so it's the idea that like anything that somebody could hide. Wow, I'm just realizing that if somebody did want to plan an attack on the Tokyo 2020 Olympics, we're giving them a lot of good ideas. Like just get that app that lets you hide your bomb at a squash court.
But the most damage they'll do will just be a series of squash balls going. Poo-poo. Well, but they locked up all of the coin lockers and all of the bins, didn't they, in Osaka for the G20 summit?
Yeah.
Caused a bit of a nuisance, yeah.
Yeah, like everything was locked down just for extra security. But already, like the existing services, I don't know if you've ever tried to use a coin locker for a suitcase in Japan, but like people who are coming over for long-term stays bring big bags, and there's no place to put them.
No.
And even like half a year ago, I think I was in Haneda Airport on like a standard Friday night at like 7:00 in the evening, and they'd sold out of food at all of the restaurants on the other side of security.
Oh, that's ridiculous, isn't it?
It's 7 on a Friday night, and like I was like, there's nothing going on. It was just a normal Friday. It's like, good luck with getting ready for the Olympics, guys.
When I went to Japan last year, I flew into Tokyo. I spent a week in Tokyo, then I flew down to Fukuoka again, and I realized how much I'd have to spend to put my luggage in a coin locker. And so what I did was I checked in my bag, and I had my carry-on bag. My carry-on bag was what I needed for that week in Tokyo.
Yeah.
I then just confidently walked straight out of the airport, leaving my suitcase on the baggage carousel.
I've done that. I had a friend coming in who I needed to get them a ticket for something, and so instead of like, I lost it purposely. I put it in like a little bag and took it to Lost and Found, and I was I found this.
Didn't we do that gig in Kitakyushu where one of our options to get the mic stand back to Stephen was to hand it into a Koban to say I've just found this microphone stand. Yeah, but that's
I think it's how reliable Japan is and how lazy and cheap we are.
Well, exactly. But then what happened was I called them up and I was like, I didn't even apologize. I didn't even tell a lie. I just said I left my luggage at the airport. and they went, oh no! Like they were really panicking. I went, don't worry, I'm a cool guy. Don't worry about it. And then it was then my check-in experience when I was then going back down to Fukuoka was even better because my luggage was there waiting for me on the other side of the security. It was an even better experience. Obviously, I don't recommend you do this.
It's just not.
It is taking the piss.
It's okay when like one or two assholes does something because they it's just more convenient for them. But with the Olympic rush, I mean, they're not going to be able to handle. They're not going to be able to handle it as it is. Another like the last time I was coming back from America, I had to take a flight in through Narita, and we got stuck and had to spend the night in Narita. So we had to take a taxi
I
from
bet that was
Narita
expensive.
to the hotel with 2 kids and all of our stuff. And you need a large, like a microbus or whatever they call it. And they wouldn't let us ride the microbus because they were only taking people longer distances into the city. They wouldn't go close to the hotel. And we tried to get into a normal taxi, and they were like, no, all your stuff won't fit. You're going to have to split up and go in 2 taxis.
Oh my god!
And it's so frustrating to deal with. And we speak Japanese. So
Yeah.
imagine like all of these foreign tourists coming through, and what are they gonna do when people
Well,
don't know how it works?
I really hope that there aren't opportunists. I mean, I've had generally extremely positive experiences with taxis in Japan. I mean, taxis, they're so prevalent and they are convenient, and they're not cheap, but they're not a complete rip-off. And
Right.
and I do remember one time I took a taxi. I used to live extremely close to Fukuoka Airport in my second house, and I took a taxi very, very, very early in the morning. I took the first flight back from I think it was Bangkok, and I just said the specific street I wanted to go to the driver, and I didn't give any indication that I spoke any more Japanese than that. And the guy went to Higashiku via Hakata Station.
Yeah.
Which, if anyone knows Fukuoka knows, that's just mental. And I didn't quite notice, and I said, like, "Futsu ni sango sen de ikiru desu ga," and he was just so taken aback by me saying, like, normally you can just go using this main road, right? He went, "Oh yeah, right." And then so I just said to him, "I don't plan to pay more than the usual fare." Right, which is like 1,500 yen, right? So I said, "Sengo 100 yen ijo harau tsumori ga nai no de," kind of like 10, dot. And this guy, he obviously just realized he got caught, right? Like he didn't even bother to start to explain himself, and it just came out. He went, "Oh, I didn't realize you spoke Japanese," like just so transparent. And that is only one instance where that's happened in countless.
Yeah, I want to make sure like it's absolutely clear that that's not a common thing at all. That must have been just like a random jerk.
Yeah, sure, and he wasn't opportunistic. And what I hope is right that there aren't more opportunists like him just for that period of the Olympics where they think, well, it will all blow over.
Right.
Because I think, generally speaking, I think as a tourist in Japan, even now, when tourism has never been as high, you can get some absolutely wonderful, authentic, memorable experiences with people that genuinely have hospitality at their heart.
Yeah, this will be the last thing that we say because we're running out of time. But we might want to talk about this further in a different episode because there are already a handful of like scams being run in terms of like either Japanese national pride, where like people are selling Japanese flags on the street, or they're doing kind of shady things here and there. But all of them are being done by foreigners in Japan.